Hello everyone, this is your daily NBA podcast on the IVM network coming to you Monday to Friday. I'm Munish and joined by Nishant. This is Triangle Offense. We had both the number one seeds in action today, and while the Sixers failed to finish or wrap up the series against the Wizards, the Utah Jazz went one step closer to finishing the series in the Western Conference. We'll talk about the Wizards game first, and then we'll talk about the Utah Jazz game. It took a Joel Embiid injury, Ben Simmons to fall into foul trouble, a disastrous, nightmarish shooting night for Tobias Harris, and then Ben Simmons failing to convert free throws for the Washington Wizards to clinch a game against the Philadelphia 76ers today. I mean, all said and done, they had a great game. Russell Westbrook, I don't want to talk too much about him. He had a triple double, but he didn't really have a great game. Don't let the box score fool you. Bradley Beal went off. He scored 27 amazing points. And Rui Hachimura, who was actually the star of the game today for the Washington Wizards, they finally managed to pull off a win and avoid embarrassment in the first round playoff game. But I think the bigger concern for the Sixers is not the loss. It's the loss of Joel Embiid, who actually went down as early as the 11th minute in the first quarter and didn't return. His status for the future games are not known. How do you think this is going to affect the Sixers?
This series is in the bag. I don't think they have any immediate concerns. And this series is good. I'm shocked they even dropped the game. I was calling for a sweep. But hey, what concerns? This is every year for the 76ers. What's new? Barring that one season where they had Jimmy Butler and then they went to not only the conference finals but game 7 of the conference finals and the very last shot of game 7 of the conference finals. Luckiest shot, flukiest in the history of basketball.
Oh, that's like the 167th time you mentioned it, so we all know about it.
Yeah, I mean, people use that to call Kawhi Leonard the greatest player in basketball. So how much ever I've rated it, I've underrated it still. It took that to knock them out, but that was their one aberration year. Before that, they had the process for I don't know, God knows how long when they were tanking for draft picks. They got all that. They made a bunch of shitty picks outside of Ben Simmons. Then they got Joel Embiid. They got Joel Embiid first, but amidst all those garbage picks, they had Simmons and Embiid one way or the other. And it seemed like the process had ended. Then they acquired Tobias Harris, a bunch of other guys. And misfits, a lot of players just didn't fit in. Then they made a few mistakes, like giving away Landry Shamet. And then it's business as usual, right? For this is the other side of the process. So side one was if you talk about old school cassettes, music cassettes, the side A was tanking the regular season for draft picks, and side B is tanking any hopes of doing anything in the postseason thanks to injuries. It's always something or the other. It's someone's back. It's Simmons with a back or a knee issue. It's Embiid with a whatever other issue. It's always something or the other. And then last year they kind of peaked with both of them getting injured. What's new, right? If Embiid goes out again, we've seen this movie before. They crash and burn. If Simmons goes out again, maybe they crash and burn a little more slowly, but crash and burn they will. This team can't survive. Like any team, when you're dependent on two superstars, one of them goes down, it's unlikely that you'll get very much done. It's only a question of can you make a few games before bowing out, or are you just going to get blown out? Let's say like the Brooklyn Nets last season. So if Embiid's out long term, what's the discussion, right? This is over. Because look, so they'll get through this round. Who do they face next? They have
Hawks.
the easier series, right? So Hawks, yeah,
They are the Hawks.
right. So they face the Hawks. Yeah, I don't think they're getting past the Hawks. If I think
Wow,
you
okay.
mentioned this yesterday or before the show today that I don't think it's going to happen. If anyone has the defense to take on the Hawks outside of the box, it's Philly. But without Embiid, even that takes quite a beating. I
Right.
think the Hawks are there. I think they're a bit too much for Philadelphia to overcome without one of their superstars. With both superstars, you would have to pick them in five or six max.
Of course.
That's how I look at it, right? And it's it's strange. A couple of things. One, all of the predictions that we made, we were on point so far. At least I was until
Mm-hmm.
AD went down and until Embiid went down. And
Right.
if anyone who's been listening to us for a while now got irritated by the number of times I mentioned that every prediction comes with a caveat that we assume the big guns are fit, this is precisely why. Because otherwise, I know what will happen in our Instagram. I'll hear all of these DMs. You got this wrong. But one, and not to brag, but on a side note, which is what the Wizards are. On a side note,
Ouch.
I was listening. I was listening to So we're on the IVM network now, right? And when we were coming on, I thought let's just do a double check on our audio quality levels. And I was playing
Mhm.
some old videos. And so when we were talking about the Wizards, I actually said this. I said I don't trust Westbrook in the clutch. I think he's one of the worst
Mhm.
decision makers of any superstar ever in clutch moments.
Yep.
There are superstars that make big shots. There are superstars that are afraid of clutch moments where all lights are on them. This guy is one where he wants it, he is not afraid of it, but he makes the shittiest decisions when the time comes. Like pass when you got to shoot, shoot when you need to pass. Um, sometimes he loses track of the shot clock. It's unreal, Westbrook, in the clutch. He makes some big shots, but that's a part of a cocktail of other stuff that he does in dying moments. And I actually said this. I said Rui Hachimura is better in clutch moments, decision making wise, and in
Yep.
shot making. He's better than Westbrook. And hey.
Well, if you went to the NBA app and you saw the scores, Russell Westbrook stats would show 19 points, 21 assists, and 21 rebounds and 14 assists.
Stat
But
pad.
but then you click on that advanced stats, and then you'll see he scored 3 out of 19 shots made, and that shows how terrible a game he had.
Yeah.
But I think at the end, I think he was key. I mean, he was not taking those shots. Instead, he was passing out to the open man. Bradley Beal and Rui Hachimura really made it count, and that counts for something. But also talking about the box scores, if you look at Ben Simmons' box scores, it would show something like 13 points, 12 rebounds, 5 assists. And you'll think like, okay, he had a decent game. It probably the rest of the team didn't show up. But if you watch the game, he couldn't make free throws at all. His stat line still reads 5 out of 11 free throws made, which is 45% today. But over the course of this 4-game series, he scored 6 out of 21 free throws. Now, this is a finalist in the Defensive Player of the Year. You need more from him, not just on the defensive line, but to at least convert free throws. I mean, you talk about Russell Westbrook and his clutch decision making and all of that. He got 16 free throws today. He converted them. I mean, that's the least you can do, right? He scored 13 out of 16, and that was enough for the Wizards to go through. If Ben Simmons had scored like 7, 8, it would be a much closer game than what the scoreline shows. I mean, the Wizards were fouling him with 3 minutes left on the clock off the ball. That's kind of embarrassing for a defensive player of the year finalist, I would say. Is his ability to not finish those free throws going to be a problem? And we spoke about this a few episodes back, whereas the shots made and the goals, the points that he scores is not enough, but he makes up for it with his defensive abilities. But free throws, I mean, this was a problem with Giannis last season as well. I mean, you know that if you foul him, there's a 50% chance that he won't make the free throws, and it was a big factor in them not getting past Miami last season. Ben Simmons, supposing Embiid is back and then Philadelphia go to the final as they should, and they face off against the Bucks or the Nets, is this going to be a weak point for the Philadelphia 76ers?
Yeah, it could easily be if teams like the Wizards exploited it today. They were It wasn't even remotely coincidence that he got fouled so many times in a row.
No, they were doing it deliberately.
Yeah, the ball could be anywhere. They're just going and hugging Ben Simmons, as you pointed out. So, as he pointed out before we recorded this, so there's a word for this, right? They used to do this to Shaq. It's called hack a Shaq. You hack him down. That's what you do. Teams had players coming off the bench, like role players who would never get minutes on the court, just so they could use their 6 fouls on Shaq. And they'd foul out and nobody would care. It'd be one of those random players that comes in just to foul Shaq.
Right.
So, and it didn't work largely. It made things tougher for the Lakers. They had to dig in a whole lot more. But that's about the only time that strategy doesn't work against a free throw shooter as bad as Shaq or Giannis or Ben Simmons, is when you're Shaq. When you average 36, 38 points in the finals, along with like 15, 30, 50 rebounds, I don't know what he had, and like 27 blocks a game. You might have gotten the drift. I'm exaggerating, but unless you're that good, it's going to be a major liability. It's not like Ben Simmons drops 30 or 40 a game.
Right.
It's not like he can shoot the 3. It's not like he even has a mid-range. He's very powerful in and around the rim and in the paint, but that's about it. Now, Giannis was also like that. Giannis was also atrocious at free throws. So how did you stop Giannis? You just cut off all paths to the rim. You put a sea of bodies there. Towers, as they call, 6'10", 7, 7'1". And you just cut off all of his driving lanes. He had to go through you. That makes it a whole lot tougher. A bunch of times you'll take charges. It's an offensive foul. A bunch of times he loses momentum enough. So you're forcing him to make tough shots and they don't drop. And on other occasions, you just hack him down, send him to the line. And it worked. It worked against Giannis. And it will
Yep.
work against Simmons unless he starts developing a shot, which is not going to happen anytime this soon. Certainly not this season. So
Mm-hmm.
this is a big deal. This is a big deal for them. But hack a Simmons or not, without Embiid, this team's going nowhere. Without Simmons, this team's going nowhere. Right? One out of two superstars is just not good enough.
True.
Unless Tobias Harris suddenly turns into Magic Johnson, I just don't. It's just not going to happen, right? So it is a concern. Yes, teams can exploit it. Yes, the
Mm-hmm.
Hacker Simmons model might work. Sure,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think that's the only way you beat. It's not like the team's so good that this is the only way you beat them. Unlike the Lakers squads with Kobe and Shaq, where you had to hack them down, and even then you
Right.
kick it out to Kobe or Fisher or somebody or the other will make a big shot. So
Right.
it's a concern, but that's not the biggest problem they have.
Game 5 is in Philadelphia in a couple of days. Assuming Joel Embiid doesn't come back now, right now we don't know his status, but assuming that he doesn't come back for Game 5, do you think the Wizards can clinch one more and make this a real contest? I know we've written off the Wizards like 4 times already this season.
Yeah.
In the playoffs before the series, we've written them off 4 times. And I'm still asking you, I mean, can they make a match out of this? Like, this is the kind of team that will never give up, right? You saw it in the regular season where they were down and out. They were 14th in the table for the longest time. And then they made a run in the last 2 months where they won 17 of the last 23 games. It's happening too often now. I mean, they went to the
Yeah.
play-in game. They lost the first one, and then they beat Hornets in this. They beat the Pacers in the second game when it was lose or go home kind of a
Yeah.
thing, lose and go home kind of a thing. So, do you think the Wizards have it in them to make this a little more
Yeah, I think these are one of
closely
those,
matched contest?
it's one of those annoying teams where uh, they never go down, they come back,
Yeah.
they get a win. And it's not annoying in a good way. Let me explain this. Every time that the series should be over, they'll let you think there's still something in it. They'll fight back, but it's pointless. It's a meaningless fight back. Other than to say you fought back, 5 years later, nobody's going to remember this team. It's one of those teams where it's bound to end at some point. You're just prolonging your misery and the misery of everyone else watching. Can they get another game? Yes. Will it be disastrous for Philadelphia? Yes. Are Wizards going through? No. Should it take an all-time choke job performance from Philadelphia to give the Wizards another win? Yes. You know they're coming. You know how to beat them. You know they're going to hack a Simmons if it's close in the fourth quarter. So you do what any good team does: finish it off in three, finish it off in 3.5, where it's not even close by the end, and nobody's bothering with the hacker Simmons. Hacker Simmons early, go for it, get into foul trouble, right? And Simmons is absolutely the guy that can handle that and drive with power to the rim. So now that he knows this is coming, I think he was caught completely off guard. Now that he knows this is coming, I would like to think he'd be better prepared for it. And this is the ultimate test. And listen, this is his time to shine. All of those, this team's nothing without Embiid.
Right.
Folks, they're going to be looking at Simmons and saying, okay, we've heard so much about you. Show us what you've got. He didn't do very well in today's game. Maybe it came out of the blue for him, but he has time to think about this, prepare for this, have a game plan in mind. Let's see what they come up with. I'm also really intrigued by what Doc Rivers does with his team now that he has to pivot around Simmons. We've heard the talk all year. Show us why you think he's valuable.
Right. Talking about annoying teams and how they refuse to give up. How annoying are Memphis Grizzlies, because yet another game they took the Jazz up till the last 2 minutes, and then I think the inexperience kind of showed at the end where Jazz was just a little too strong to get past, and they got past the line pretty comfortably in the end. But Memphis Grizzlies, this is a team that you would remember after 5 years because they'll keep on developing. They have a bunch of young players who are just going to get better and better.
Yeah.
This is a great team to watch. I'm a fan of this Memphis team already. And to quote you from a few episodes back, or probably at the start of the season, you said that you would pick Ja Morant over Zion Williamson. Your pick seems more and more right as the days goes by, and as we see more and more of Morant. That's a great pick, I would say. But Utah Jazz now things are falling perfectly in place for them. They're finishing off the series early, hopefully. But the rest of the Western Conference is going the distance, right? The Lakers and the Phoenix, they're down. They might go to Game 6. Everyone else is tied 2-2. The Denver and Portland Trailblazers are tied at 2-2. Clippers and Mavs are tied at 2-2. So every one of them are going to have long, tough schedules, whereas Jazz are coasting through it. I wouldn't say coasting through, but at least finishing off the series early. Do you think this kind of plays into the hands of Jazz? It's like cards are falling into place perfectly for them.
Looks like it. And they're also peaking at the right time.
Yeah.
That's another good. They got their injuries out of the way. People are back. People are fit. They got Rusty shooting out of the way. They're shooting lights out again.
Yep. Yep.
Few games in a row now, bar that first game. They hit what 50% from three again.
Right.
I think both teams took the same number of threes plus or minus one, and
Yep.
the Jazz just converted a whole bunch more, and that's where they created separation, which they needed because Memphis is a force in the paint. They've got way too many people that can finish under the rim. Morant, Brooks, all of these guys. Valanciunas had some points there, and they're always going to have more points in the paint than the Jazz, who none of their star scorers really are in the paint scorers. They can, but that's not where they prefer to operate. Those are not the zones they hit, barring Gobert. So that three shooting was critical. I think what's impressive about this Jazz team is they see their matchup and they adapt. They've done this even in the regular season, and they're doing this pretty well in the postseason. Although this is the easiest of the matchups they'll face
Right.
because of their playoff journey. So this series should be a wrap. Maybe the Grizzlies can pull a game back, maybe. But this series is a wrap. It's the Jazz going through one way or the other. Grizzlies though are the other kind of annoying. You don't fault this team for trying hard. They're not prolonging anything. They're just giving a good fight every game, showing you that this team's there. This team's one to watch out for. They're only going to get stronger. All of them are just young guns developing. And I absolutely stand by my pick, Ja Morant over Zion. Even if you tell me 10 years from now Zion will be the better player over the course of these 10 years than Ja Morant, I'd still pick Ja Morant, because when you're drafting a player, very rarely do you draft a player to go win the chip with that player instantly. It's not an instant result line of recruitment. You trade for a player to build a chip winning squad. You sign a free agent to aid your chip winning squad or to win, depending on the level of that free agent. When you go into the draft, you're either looking at young talent that could develop into either a valuable trade asset or a cornerstone of your franchise.
Right.
Now, if you are neither of these guys were picked thinking they'd be trade assets someday. They might be, but that's not why you pick talent like this. So then you are picking a cornerstone for your franchise. You're picking a franchise guy, the guy that will run your franchise and be the face of the franchise and be the leader that others look up to. That's not Zion. Even if he is the better player, which I don't think he is, I don't think he will be. I think Ja Morant has more that he can offer. But even then, that's not Zion. I don't see Zion as the guy that can lead. He's not the Tim Duncan type. He's more like the Charles Barkley type. Phenomenal player, outstanding athleticism, not the leader. If he does win a chip, I don't think he'll be the primary face on it. He might be the best player, but he's not going to be the glue that holds the team together or the leader of men, so to speak. Ja Morant absolutely is. Donovan Mitchell is. Trae Young absolutely is. He's proven it this season.
Right.
Luka is. Zion is not. At least nothing we've seen so far has convinced me of that. So that's why I'd pick Ja over Zion.
Okay, coming back to the Jazz, this looked like a team that don't panic at all, right? I mean, the minute the game got close, they closed it out. They went on a streak of scoring 8-9 points, and then they spread the distance, and then it was too much for the Memphis to come back. I like this Jazz team, and we've spoken about this multiple times over the course of the season. They have an amazing offense. They have an amazing defense, probably the defensive player of the year. And they have a great bench with Jordan Clarkson, Ingles, Niang, all of these guys coming off the bench. They have an amazing bench. Why do we still not consider them one of the favorites to win the Western Conference and even the NBA Finals, make a match of it in the NBA Finals? This is a team that has reached the 5th consecutive postseason, and I think for a team to win or go all the way, they need to be there multiple times, and then you need to have some heartbreak, and then you grit through it, and then you finally make the leap, right? I think the Jazz have seen it all. They've made 5 consecutive postseasons. They blew a 3-1 lead last season, so that was a heartbreak. And I don't see why we're not picking them as favorites still, because Lakers are not fit. They're struggling against Phoenix. Clippers, they're struggling against Mavs, although they made a great comeback in the last 2 games. Mavs, I don't see them beating multiple of these teams. I don't see them meeting either the Suns, or I don't see them meeting the Jazz either. So why are we not picking the Jazz?
I can fathom a guess. Multiple postseasons is impressive, but doesn't really paint the picture for a championship contender. Not in isolation. I mean, the Houston Rockets made a bunch of postseasons in a row. Not one year did anyone look at them and say, okay, they're contenders. Or they shouldn't have, at least, if they did. I think with the Jazz, it's a case of there's no A++ superstars there. And more importantly, there are A++ superstars in the conference that they're competing in. Like when you look at Golden State, not this season, but when you look at Golden State, that demands something.
Right.
The Lakers, of course. Well, I mean, it's LeBron and
Of
there's
course.
another All-Star, so of course. Clippers again, same reason. Finals MVP, Kawhi, Paul George, hype. Denver Nuggets are this season's MVP. Luka is this season's, at least at the start of the season, MVP favorite. None of the Jazz players figure in any of this outside of the DPOY conversation consistently. It's a
Right.
team.
Mm-hmm.
These teams don't very often win. The only aberration is the Spurs, but even they had Tim Duncan. It's just that he was low key. He was no less of a superstar than any of his peers. So, and he was an MVP and all of that, the whole 9 yards, number 1 draft pick. So, when was the last time a team won the league?
Mm-hmm.
Think about it. 2004. That's the only year I can think of. The Pistons that beat the half worn out, half feuding with each other Lakers. Yeah,
Okay.
it had like Gary Payton and Karl Malone. That was their retirement home. That year,
Mhm.
37 or whatever, and completely out of it. And they even missed a bunch of time in the finals. So that was an old age home. And then Shaq and Kobe were busy dropping rap diss tracks on each other and whatnot. And that was the last year they were together. So that was the last real all-round team, no focal point superstar that won the league. It's only happened once in the last, I don't know, we would have to go back to maybe the 80s or the 70s to last find a team like this that
Okay.
won it. Because after that, all through the 80s, right, Larry Bird and the Celtics, big four, with one focal point, multiple time MVP,
Right.
and probably the last guy to win 3 MVPs in a row. Then they had the Lakers. That was loaded. There was Magic Johnson and Kareem and James Worthy, right? And then you had, of course, the Bulls, and it was just a rampage. You had the bad boy Pistons in between, but they also had the superstar. Then came the Bulls, then came the Spurs, then came the Lakers, Spurs again, Pistons, punctuation mark in between, Spurs again, Miami Heat, Shaq and Wade. Then the LeBron era of those Heat teams and the Cavs teams and the Warriors. When was the last team without a...
What about the early Warriors team? The first time they made a run, and they won they won the title.
Steph was right up there for MVP. Man, nobody had seen shooting like that. The whole league was talking about it. They had changed the game of basketball. Utah Jazz aren't changing shit. They're just playing really well. They're playing really well, but we've seen teams play like this before. The great teams, of course, of yesteryears. But it's not revolutionary. There's no MVP candidate here, not yet. They're not a glamorous franchise. They're not a big market. They're not who get written about a lot. And
Right.
here's an anecdotal little piece of evidence. Early on when we started this podcast, and most of our listeners used to come on the audio version, YouTube barely saw any traction, right? And I think still the same. Most people seem to prefer listening to sports podcasts in audio only. I would assume while doing something while working. Now, on YouTube, the videos that got disproportionately high views, of whatever little views we got, were Utah Jazz videos. You remember there were a few dudes from the US wrote in our comments, "Thank you for talking about the Jazz." That's how underrated they are. So, is it really surprising anyone that they're not anyone's favorite?
All right, so that was Jazz. I would really like them to go on and make a run because I like the teams that have been built, who've crashed and burnt, and then you've seen it all, and then you finally make the leap.
Yeah.
Unlike someone like a Brooklyn Nets who really put together 3 superstars and trying to win a chip in the first year, not really the kind of narrative I would like to be a fan of. So I'm rooting for the Jazz at least for now, at least in this round. If they face the Clippers in the next round, I'm rooting for the Jazz. When it comes to the Jazz and the Suns, that's when I probably make a decision. But
Yeah.
a great episode today. I think we had great fun talking about 2 games, 4 teams. Tomorrow there's going to be a bunch of games as well. The Celtics take on the Nets. The Nets might just finish it because KD doesn't want to go to Boston again.
Yeah, it's over.
The Nuggets taking on the Trailblazers. That's set up perfectly. Tied at 2-2. And also the Lakers and the Suns. That's set up perfectly as well.
Everything's
2-2.
set to do in the West.
What are your picks for these games?
Yeah, you'd have to favor the Suns in this one. I don't think they'll play AD. He's injured, doesn't look like he's coming back. And even if he's half fit, I don't think they should play him. You should drop a game for A, first because the player's health matters, and B, because in the long run that's the sensible thing to do, even if it seems counterproductive for one game. It's exactly what I said about Chris Paul also. They should have rested him for that game because look how good he was when he came back refreshed.
Yep.
So so you'd have to favor the Suns. I'm only going to be looking at LeBron. How is he going to tackle this? Is he still going to sit back and let the team kind of deal with this? Or is Thanos going to put on his glove? I think and can he put on his glove? It's going to be interesting to see if he can roll back the years. At least 3-4 years ago when he used to carry those Cavs teams, either when Kyrie and Kevin Love were injured or when Kyrie just stormed off. It will need that version of LeBron, and even then it'll be an uphill climb because the Lakers bigs are clumsy at best. The soul is too slow. Drummond is Drummond. Harrell seems to be out of favor with Vogel because of his limitations, which is a shame because of the three, he's probably the best scoring option.
Right.
Montrezl Harrell. So then Ayton's going to have a field day. And Ayton is key to this Phoenix offense as he is to their defense, right? So it'll be an uphill climb, but I'm only looking at LeBron. I want to see what version of LeBron we get in this game. But I'd favor the Phoenix Suns. What are the other games again? Brooklyn. Yeah, Brooklyn's done.
The Nuggets.
Going to close it up.
Brooklyn's done. I think that's. I mean, it's too much for Tatum to do it all alone again.
Yeah.
I don't see that happening.
The Nuggets series.
The
is
Nuggets
fun.
and the Trailblazers. That's set up perfectly.
Yeah, it'll be a shootout.
I really don't know who to pick in that series because both the teams are
me
equally
neither.
terrible, equally good sometimes. So I really don't know what to pick in that series.
Yeah, me neither. But it'll be a shootout. It'll be fun. Nobody defends in that series. That's all I can say. I'd probably still favor Jokic because Jokic and the Nuggets because A, Jokic and B, he's got the right weapon. Sometimes it just doesn't fall, but with MPJ and Aaron Gordon and all these guys going off, I think it'll be a good show. Let's see.
Yep. All right. That's all the time we have for today, and I'll catch you tomorrow.
All right, man. Cheers.